In this video we're going to make a Scooby Doo character. Now I've got some brown modelling paste, modelling or flour paste, which I've dyed brown. So I'm just going to start by rolling it into a very rough sort of teardrop shape, slightly thinner at one end than the other. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just push our hand into the centre, thinning it out a little bit around the middle. So this top bit is going to become the chest and the bottom bit is going to become the body. Now I've got a bit of a crack in mine, so if it cracks, just try and smooth it out the best you can. Now I'm going to lie mine down on the board, because if I stand him up while I'm making it, you're not going to see it very well. But when you're doing yours, you'll be able to do it stood up. So I've got 2 bits of fondant now, which we're going to use for the legs, his back legs. So start with a ball, and we're just going to kind of flatten it down so that it's thin at one side and fat at the other. And I'm going to push it so it becomes a little bit pointy, just in one point. Put a little bit of water on the back, and I'm going to push that into the bottom of his body like that. And what I'm going to do is, using a modelling tool, I'll just open it outwards a little bit. I'm just going to put a line that goes up toward that point that we've made, so that it looks like his leg has got a fold in it. I'm just going to put a little line coming just below it too. And you're going to repeat the same with the other side. Now for his feet, again I've got 2 small balls of my brown modelling paste. Just make sure they're about an even size. And what I'm going to do is roll it again so it becomes a little bit teardrop shaped, flattening down the small end and leaving a nice thick end for where his foot's going to be. And I'm going to put in 2 indentations using my modelling tool to create a little foot. And I'm just going to put a little bit of water on that slim pointy end, and we're just going to push that onto the bottom of the leg. And you're going to repeat the same for the other side. So I've let mine set just for a few hours, just because when I keep picking it up to show you on the screen, it's flopping around a little bit. It's just on some greaseproof paper to stop it sticking as well. So we're going to take some more of our brown and we're going to work on the front legs. So we're just going to start with a long, thin sausage shape. Now, it's fine to have it narrow at one end than at the other, because your narrow end is going to come to the bottom and the thick end is going to come to the top. Okay, so we're going to want 2 like that. If it's a little bit long, we can cut it down. So I'm going to put a bit of water just up the side of his chest and going down his front, and I'll do that on both sides. And I'm going to pinch that top bit so that it's thin at the top, just there. I'm going to start from here, and I'm going to push that toe. Just gonna indent it just a tiny bit there. And we're gonna pull it down to the front. And I'm just gonna put an indentation just there, which would be like the back of his heel. I'm gonna pinch it off where it comes to the bottom, and then we'll add his foot separate. For his foot, we're just going to take a ball of your brown fondant. Just check size-wise that you're happy with it against the figure. So I've got my ball, and I'm just going to flatten it slightly just at one side, like that. And we're going to put in our indentations again for his toes. And we're just going to pop that on the bottom of that leg that you've made. So I've just pushed his foot under there, and we're going to put another one on this side, repeating exactly the same as we did before. So mine's had a little bit of time to set. I've just left it overnight just because I find it easier then to work with it as I knock things if they haven't dried and they fall apart. So what we're going to do is take some more brown, and we're just going to pull off a small amount to save for his ears, and he doesn't have huge ears, so you won't need loads. And I'm just going to knead it because it's started to dry up a little bit. You can add tricks if it's drying out too much. I'm going to roll, and I'm going to try and flatten this bottom bit. We want the bottom bit to be the same size as the bottom bit of his neck. So we're going to put it on and just see for size if it fits on there. So I know it wants to be roughly that kind of width. And his neck is quite long and it's quite chunky, and it stays a similar width all the way up. And what I'm going to do is with this bit here, I'm just going to try and squash it so that it comes to a little bit more of a dog-shaped head. And we're going to put a finger in across the top, creating a smaller bit of the head up here and a big bit then for his nose. I'm going to push that upwards. This is where it is more difficult to explain exactly what it is that I'm doing with the face. I'm going to use my modelling tool to kind of push a line up here, like so. And we'll do the same on this side. So I'm going to put a line just down here, down the centre, just slightly. And I'm going to try and bring it round to a curve for the underneath of his mouth. I'm not entirely sure I've got mine central, so spend a bit more time on yours. So from that bit that you've just put an impression of, you're going to go round and you're going to bring it up a little bit here. Trying to keep the line reasonably smooth. Rub it with your finger if it's looking a bit jaggedy. And then we're going to curve it back down just a little bit, and then it's going to go back up again. And we're going to push a little indentation in there for the end of his smile, and you're going to repeat that on the other side. So we're going to bring it round and up, down again, and back up. So the under bit of his face now, I think what we'll do is we'll keep him without teeth on this version, as it starts getting a bit more complicated if we add him teeth. So I'm going to push my tool right in there. Create a little bit of a hole, and then we're going to push this around, so creating a bottom lip almost, and I'm just going to squeeze it in a little bit here to narrow it. So that's what it looks like from the side, that's what it looks like from the front. I'm just going to pull this bit up a little bit so I've got space to put his eyes on. And we'll just put it on our stick to see size-wise what it looks like. So if you think it's a little bit too long, we'll just cut a little bit off the neck. Just going to add another little line in there. So I'm just standing up so I can see size-wise what it looks like. So I think I'm about happy with that size-wise. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of water in between to stick that to that, and we'll cover the join with his dog collar. Now I'm leaving mine down to dry so that his head doesn't shrink while it's drying, or his neck doesn't get squashed while it's drying. And before it's dry, we're just going to put in with some cocktail sticks some little dots where his whiskers would go. So on his nose, we're just going to put 3 little dots, and then we're also going to put a couple just on his chin, like so. I've got a bit of blue modelling paste, which we just need until it's nice and soft, and I'm going to roll that out so it's quite thin. And I'm just going to cut a thin strip that will do for his collar. So I'll remove that bit. If you find it easier to use a pizza cutter than a knife, then do use a pizza cutter. And you just want to make sure it's long enough to go all the way around the neck. So I'm going to put a little bit of water on the back. You can use edible glue if you prefer. And I'm going to put it around his neck so that it covers that join that we've got. And I'll just cut it off at the back where it meets. And using the bit of blue that you've got left, we're going to make a little square for his dog collar. Again, just rolling it out. Now you can either cut it by hand or use a cutter. So I've just got a little blue plastic cutter. I'm just going to push that in there. Sometimes awkward to get the shapes out of these cutters. So I've got a little square shape. We're just going to stick that just below his collar. Like that. I'm not doing it quite touching, I've left a little gap. And now we'll work on his face. I've got just a small amount of black fondant. So we're going to squash that ball and we're going to squeeze it into a bit of a triangle even shape. And we're just going to stick that on the end of his nose. You can use water if it doesn't just stick. I've got 2 white balls of modelling paste, just small, that we're just going to squash flat. That these will then stick on for his eyes. So I'm going to place them on his head, and then you can move them around until you're happy with them. And just squash the shape slightly, like so. And we're going to add some little black dots. So I've rolled 2 tiny dots of black fondant, and I'm just going to put a little bit of water in his eyes. I'm going to put the blacks near the top of his eyes, and just gently pick it up with your finger if you can, and just push onto the top of your eyes. Now taking another 2 tiny little black balls of fondant, we're going to roll them into little sausage shapes, so they're a little bit lengthened. Don't want them really long. And these are going to go on to his eyebrows. So just a little bit of water just above each eye, leave a bit of a gap. And we're just going to push those onto the top of his head and move them around until you're happy with the position that they're in. Now back to my brown, and I've got 2 small circles of brown. These are going to be his ears. I'm going to start by rolling it into a bit of a teardrop shape, and you're going to squash it flat. I've got a few cracks in that one. So a teardrop shape that's squashed. And I've got some really pale pink that you're going to do the same with, so 2 small discs of it, and then roll it into 2 tiny teardrop shapes. They get a little bit fiddly when they're so small, and you're just going to push it in the centre of each ear, like so. Now his ears are shaped a little bit, so I'm just going to put a line in the centre like that so I can fold it slightly, and then a little dent, I don't know if you can see very well, just down one side of his ear like that. And I'm going to put a little bit of water just on the bottom, and I'm just going to push that onto the side of his head. Now I might have to stand him up to do it properly so it stays on. And you're just going to repeat the same for the other side. Taking some more black fondant, we're going to roll and squash a big circle. If you want to use a cutter you can do, but it doesn't need to be a perfect circle. It's going to be the spot that goes on his back. So he just has one big spot, I think, on the back of him. I don't actually have any pictures of him from the back, so we're going to just put a little bit of water on the back of there, and then we're going to place it on the back of his body. And I'm going to create 2 small round circles of black, and these are going to be the little dots on his arms. So I'm squashing these down, and I'm just going to create a bit of a point at the end of one of them, a little bit of water on the back, and we're going to put that if I can get it on, just on the top of his arm. Pressing that on. And the same with the other one. I'm going to put the other one a little bit further down. Just on there. And you're just going to do exactly the same with his other arm. I'm taking the rest of my brown that I've got left, and I'm just going to create his tail. So we're literally just going to roll it into a really long sausage shape or snake shape, like so. Now, the easiest option is to keep it just next to him, and we can just stick it on the back and keep his tail on the floor. Or if you want it to come round and stick up, I don't know how well you'll be able to see that. If you want it to stick up, it might be an idea to put a wire through it. So what we're going to do is taking a piece of wire, bend it to the shape you'd like it to be. So I'll probably go for mine, that kind of shape. And I'm just going to bend it round a little bit for the bit that's going to stick into his body. And I'm just going to trim so it's enough to stick in his body. Now, obviously if it's going to be and you can't put the wire in. So taking my tail, I'm going to thread it onto the wire. And you'll have to do this quite carefully, otherwise you'll find the wire will just poke out, and you'll find that it probably does squash down the tail a little bit, so stretch it as you're going along. So until you've got it all the way along on the wire. So I'm going to push the wire into the back, like so. And I'm going to put a little bit of water at the back. I don't know how well you can see this. And I'm going to push the tail right down onto the body. Now, because it still moves around at the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to prop it up against something so it's in the position I want it to be in until it's dried. So taking some yellow, and it's just modelling paste mixed with about the same amount of fondant. I'm just going to roll it into a long thin shape. I'm going to put this around the edge of the square. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water just around the edge of his dog collar. Not dog collar, his little dog tag. Okay. And I'm going to start the bottom bit going around and then fold it upwards. And what we'll do is we'll trim it off at the top. Because the top bit where it joins will be covered when we add the little tag that goes onto the collar. It'll just cover that join. So I'm just going to take some of the stuff that I've got left over, and I'm going to put a little bit of water over his collar. I'm just going to put a little indentation in the top of his tag with my brush. I'm going to roll it thin. I'm going to pop that thin end into that hole that we've just made, and we're going to curl it round. And I'm just going to cut off the extra up at the top. And using my paintbrush, I'm just going to push that round so it goes over the top of the dog collar. And then you're just going to want a tiny bit more to just stick in the gap at this side, just down there like that. And that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll put up a finished picture for you to see.
If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.